welcome to Money, 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 your weekly personal finance date with me, Surabhi Upadhyay. It's tax season. Yes, March is here, and that means you've got just 4 more weeks to ensure that you've taken all possible tax benefits and legitimate deductions to minimize the tax pain before the financial year ends. So joining me today on the show to give you a quick tax checklist is Mayur Shah, partner EY, as well as Chetan Chandak of H&R Block. Gentlemen, great to have you here. I know, your expertise is in great demand this season, particularly as all salaried individuals are trying to make sure that, they're not missing out on something. So Mayur, let me start with you first. Sure. We were hoping that, life will look better come next financial year. That's not really happened in this budget. So let's work with what we have for the current fiscal. Your just broad thoughts on what is the one thing that you tell people when they're looking at tax planning and looking at being very efficient when it comes to their tax liability?
So for me, tax planning, there are a couple of aspects. Is that, you plan your investment in a manner which offers you better tax incentive benefits, so that, whatever investment you make, you can make maximum return out of that, including saving on tax cost. The second aspect is that, many a times we do incur certain expenditure which can provide us certain benefits, but we do not maintain documents or evidence to show that these expenses are incurred in this respect, and therefore, may miss out on those deductions. So let me give you an example that, you are, one is making donations, and donation receipt do contain certificate whether this donation is eligible for deductions or not, and it has a validity period. In absence of that, the tax authority is very likely to deny the benefit. The third aspect and very important aspect, which I believe is most important from a tax planning perspective, is that certain times we do not report certain things which can increase tax or penalties on us, and which we can avoid. Like, currently all ordinary residents are required to disclose their certain assets. Giving an example that, I as a IT consultant go outside India, open a bank account outside India, and I do not report that bank account. Nothing will be taxable therein, but non-disclosure could levy a penalty on me.
Okay. And
hence one should ensure that not only saving taxes, but avoiding penalty is also a kind of a planning for me.
Okay, so let's get started with Chetan. Chetan, let's take up the bulk of, ATC. That's pretty much the only solace that salary taxpayers have, this 1.5 lakh rupee list of deductions. So if you could just quickly, go over the checklist and tell us exactly what all is covered under ATC.
See, the major benefits to a salaried individual is in the form of ATC deductions. So under that, you have many options available, starting with your PPF account, Employees Provident Fund, then the investment in Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana, then the 5 years fixed deposits with either post office or bank, or ELSS, equity linked savings schemes, and your children's tuition fee. So these are all are the list of investments or the expenses which qualifies for ATC deduction, including your housing loan principal repayment, your stamp duty and registration charges which you pay on your registration of your home. So all these qualify for ATC deductions, and there are many other like government securities. There are few government securities which qualifies for ATC benefits as well.
Okay, let me ask some follow-up questions, Mayur, on this. The ATC category itself, while of course all kinds of life insurance policies you're taking, the premium that you're paying on them, they will be covered, ULIPs are going to be covered. I'm looking at the clause which talks about contribution to a pension scheme. Because for the NPS, there is a additional 50,000 deduction over and above this 1.5 lakh limit. But what sort of pension schemes are covered under the ATC limit, the 1.5 lakh limit?
So there are two kinds of pension scheme. One which we contribute to statutory provident fund. Then the other one is superannuation scheme, which is again a kind of a pension scheme. And there is another provision where it falls within the limit of 1.5 lakh, where any pensions which are being bought from the market, which are being registered with IRDA, those pension schemes are also covered therein.
So any kind of annuity that you might be
Annuity
buying.
which you can buy
Okay.
would get covered therein.
Okay.
So these are the products which are getting covered under 8IC and other provisions which are limiting the entire deduction to 1.5 lakh apart from NPS.
Okay. Now, Chetan, of course, mentioned the principal amount that you're repaying. If you've taken a home loan and you're repaying your principal, so 1.5 lakh rupees every year is taken care of in the ATC category. But let's talk about the other aspects, the interest that you'd be repaying, and also the additional deduction that is being offered to those who are buying smaller houses. So if your ticket size is just, I think, 50 lakh rupees, if the loan amount is 35 lakhs, then you get an additional deduction. So run us through some of those provisions as well.
Yeah. So there are couple of things. One, where any property which is being bought and you are paying interest on borrowed funds which are being borrowed for buying a property. Now, if it is self-occupied property, then you get a deduction only limited to 2 lakh rupees. But if this property is being let out or is being considered as deemed to have been let out, the deduction can be of any amount of interest. And such interest or a loss which is being incurred on house property can be set off against any source of income.
Like all good things come to an end, this good news also comes to an end. This is the last financial year, right?
Absolutely right. You are absolutely bang on point. So, this is going to end from this year onwards. So, this is the deduction which you can claim. And as you rightly mentioned, for, interest up to 50,000 is available for deduction under section 8IE, where the condition is that the ticket size of the house is only 50 lakhs, whereas loan thereon should not exceed 35 lakhs. But now that deduction is also available only for this year, and next year onwards I don't think it will be available.
I think it's available only on loans that have been sanctioned in a particular year.
That is from 15 to 16.
15 to 16. Okay, so if your loan has been sanctioned in that year, if the amount is not more than 35 lakhs, if the house ticket size, the property is not above 50 lakhs, then you get additional deduction. So total deduction is 2.5 lakhs.
2.5 lakhs.
So Mayur, quick point on the loss component that we're talking about, because it's only available for this year, but there is a provision to carry forward that loss, right, for the next several years.
Sure. So what you are talking about is that going forward, what will happen if the loss is limited to 2 lakh rupees, and if I have an excess loss, what should I do with it? Yes, such loss is to be carried forward for next 8 years.
Okay.
And such loss can be set off only against income from house property. So in subsequent year, if you have any income arising from house property, this loss can be set off only against that that income. If there is no income, and very unlikely that people will be able to generate income within 8 years time, then it is a lost cause.
Mayur, let's do this with an example, because this is a changing provision and a lot of people will want to understand the math. So this year, of course, whatever is my loss, I can, claim the entire amount as deduction. Let's talk about next financial year onwards. Supposing I have a loss of around 9 lakh rupees because of the interest that I've paid on this loan. I can only claim a deduction of up to 2 lakhs, right? There is a balance amount of 7 lakhs, which gets carried forward. But then how does it work? I mean, how will I set it off in the subsequent years?
Sure. So what is happening is that, your loss from income from house properties around 9 lakhs. And 2 lakhs will be adjusted against your salary income or income from other sources.
Okay.
Balance 7 lakhs, you will carry forward it to the next year. What happens in the next year? Income from house properties, assuming it is there, say up to 5 lakhs, then what happens is that 7 lakhs loss which was carried forward from the last year, out of which you will take 5 lakhs and adjust against income which has been there from house property.
So here is my other question, that your total loss in the subsequent year was 7 lakhs. Can you use the entire amount to offset the income from house, or will that be capped at 2 lakhs as well in the subsequent year?
No. So as far as if you are adjusting this loss against income from house property, there are no limits.
Okay.
So therefore there are no limits of 2 lakh which will apply in this situation.
Okay.
However, if any loss which is there, which is to be set off against any other heads, then the limit of 2 lakhs will apply and not otherwise.
Okay, fair enough. So that's a lot about taxation with respect to loans and housing. We have to take a break. There are lots of other heads, and make sure you've run your checklist through them as well. Whether you're taking medical insurance, if there's a disability in your household, if there are any specified ailments, there are tax benefits that you should take advantage of, and we'll discuss them on the other side of the break. Welcome back. Here with Money, 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 and this is the tax saving special because it is that season in the year again. So let me start off with Chetan. Chetan, let's talk about the reductions that are available with respect to healthcare. So do run us through the tax benefits that are available.
See, for the treatment of medical reasons, whatever, so there are many deductions which are available to a person. It starts with the medical reimbursement for your perquisite up to 15,000, which you can claim as exempt from your employer. If you submit the bills to the employer, he will allow you the 15,000 exemption. Apart from that, there, if you pay the medical insurance for you yourself, or any member of your family, including your spouse, children, so then you get a deduction of up to 25,000. And if you or any member of your family is more than 60 years of age, that deduction goes to 30,000. Apart from that, if you are paying the medical insurance premium for your parents, so the additional deduction you get is 25,000. And if any of them, so either of your parents is about 60 years of age, so you get a deduction of 30,000 total. Apart from this, if you have done any preventive health checkup, so you can claim the deduction of up to 5,000, maximum 5,000 for under this overall limit of 80D. So this entire deduction is available under 80D.
Okay, Mayur, let's also talk about specified ailments and disabilities, because this is, I guess, one of the sections which is not very well spoken of. So a lot of times people might not know what are the tax advantages that they can try and take a look at.
Sure. So for specified ailments, there are certain deductions, or if any expenditure which are being incurred, the expenditure is allowed as a deduction, and there are limits to it. So the limit is 75,000 for resident individuals, and if it is for dependent who suffers severe disability, then it can get into 1,25,000.
And when we talk about specified ailments, would you offhand remember which are the major ailments that have been listed out by the taxman?
So those are like cancers, TB, and other elements which are covered therein.
Let's also talk about the NPS in a little more detail, because that gave salaried individuals the avenue of saving an additional 50,000 rupee in tax, and also hopefully build up some kind of retirement security. So how does the tax treatment for NPS work? Because it's a little complicated. When you invest, it's exempt. During the maturity period, it's exempt. But when you're withdrawing money from NPS, that's where there is partial exemption offered. So do run us through the provisions.
In NPS, there are various stages which we really look at it. One, at the contribution stage. So for salaried employee, there are two kinds of contribution can happen. One, which employee himself contributes by way of deduction from his salary, and employer paying into the NPS scheme. Another one where employer himself contributes to the pension scheme. Now, as far as employee's own contribution is concerned, the limit for that contribution can be anything, but one eligible amount is 10% of your basic salary, which is eligible for deductions. However, overall limit along with 8IC pension scheme and NPS scheme all put together cannot exceed 1.5 lakh. Apart from that, additional 50,000 is available towards this contribution. So overall limit gets expanded to 2 lakh in that sense.
It's 2 lakhs or it's 10% of your basic salary, whichever is less.
Absolutely right.
Okay, so that's at the contribution stage.
Right. Now, employer's contribution up to 10% of basic salary is entirely available as a deduction, and there are no limits to it. So that is over and above this 2 lakh.
Okay, but that's for the employer. That's a deduction that the employer is going to claim.
So, the method which is being followed is exempt at the stage of contribution, exempt at the stage of income earned from this NPS. However, whenever it is being withdrawn, last year the provision came in that up to 40% it is tax exempt and balance 60% is taxable. Now what has been also proposed on a going forward basis, that if until the final withdrawal happens, if there are any interim withdrawals which are happening as per the NPS scheme, if that is not exceeding 25%, it can never exceed 25%, then the entire amount is also exempt. Those interim withdrawals are also going to be exempt from taxation. But that will happen from the next year onwards.
Okay, fair enough. Chetan, come in on this. NPS, and let me broaden this question to overall retirement planning and investing for your sunset years. A lot of people simply put in money into different tax saving investments because it's last minute, you don't think it through, and you somehow want to just save tax. But, looking at it from a tax efficiency point of view, which vehicle do you think is the most efficient if you want to save some money for retirement?
See, NPS is one of the good options, but there are factors which are involved, that returns are not assured, but and the returns are linked to market performance, because certain portion of your investment goes into equity as well. So it is one of the good options, because there are even the charges, the fund management charges are very low. So if you compare with the ELSS, so ELSS will charge you somewhere in the range of 2 to 2.5% as a fund management charges, and I think for cap on the expenses is 0.25% in case of NPS. Apart from that, I think PF, your Employees Provident Fund for salaried individuals, is one of the best option for investing. Reason being, it provides you 0.5% higher interest rate as of now as compared to your even PPF or other small saving schemes. And the advantage is that it is if you complete 5 years of service, then and if you take a break from the job for 2 months, or say whatever reason you quit the job and start on your own, so entire amount what you withdraw is tax exempt, and the interest which you receive on the PF account is also tax exempt during its tenure. So if you have that option, you can voluntarily contribute additionally to the PF, your Employees Provident Fund.
Well, sometimes it's good to keep things simple in life. Of course, maybe that's not all you need. You will require other forms of investment as well. Okay, all right. On that note, we have to take another quick break. But when we come back, some viewer queries, all the tax questions that you need answered, that'll be done right here on Money, Money, Money. Welcome back here with the tax planning special edition of Money, 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 as we're winding down the financial year and getting ready to set the tax house in order. Let's take some viewer questions then. We have Mr. S. Roopchand on the line, who's 55 years old, and he's a Mumbai resident. Hi, sir. Welcome to Money, Money, Money.
I have a question regarding, my mother, my wife's mother-in-law passed away, and she had some joint deposits in the bank and senior citizens savings schemes deposits, and some shares and tax-free bonds in the demat account, which were passed on to her.
Okay.
Are these things supposed to be shown as exempt income in our income tax return?
Mayur, how does this work? I mean, when there is something that comes your way because you were a joint account holder or a nominee in the same account, then how is it treated?
So, if any asset which is coming as a part of inheritance, that a transfer of asset does not result into any taxation as such, and there is a specific provision under the law, this is not to be considered as an income. Whereas income after the transfer of asset, any income arising thereon, like say bonds or any assets which has been transferred which has an income, interest income or dividend income or any other such income, and if that is subject to tax, then on such income tax needs to be paid by the person who is receiving income on a going forward basis.
That is after the transfer is complete.
Absolutely right. But until then, any inheritance received, there is no taxation thereon.
All right, so as of now, no inheritance tax in this country. So I guess people who are getting some inheritance, they can continue to be relieved. Okay, let's move on to the next query. This one's coming in from Karan Garg. He's 26 years old. He's calling us from New Delhi. Hi, Karan.
Yeah, so I earn about 5 lakh rupees per annum. I only have LIC premium of 25,000 per annum right now. So I'm looking at another 4,000 of investing. So
you want to invest another 4,000 rupees per month?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Chetan, let me ask you again. I mean, it's pretty similar to what we were discussing. Someone who's young, just starting out earning, they want to start investing and make sure the investment is tax efficient as well. What would you advise? My guess is, will you veer towards ELSS?
100%. So as he is very young, just 26-year-old, and he should be able to take some risk. So ELSS is the best category of investment which can provide him very good returns in the as the investment is locked for 3 years. So equity market generally over a period of 3 to 5 years can provide very good return as compared to any other tax saving investment avenues.
Okay, all right, Karan. So think about some of those mutual funds that carry the income tax advantage as well, and you can make some money and hopefully save on tax as well. Okay, all right. On that note, we've run completely out of time on this edition of Money, 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 the tax planning special. So we'll thank both Mayur as well as Chetan for joining in and helping simplify the tax maths for our viewers. That's it on this episode. We'll see you again next week.